Hello. Tonight we are here on Unjust. We are going to be talking about public policy. We have an election coming up in November, and hold on, we're looking for our co-hosts. So, with public policy, in a lot of these states, what's happening?
Hello?
Hey, are you logging in?
Yeah, I'm on the camera.
Don't see you.
I don't know why. Let me see.
Can you see me?
Uh, oh, wait a minute.
There
Okay.
you go. All right. Bye. Shaka, we both look like we were hanging out and being colorful today. You got your blue on. I got my little blues and yellows. How you doing tonight? You on mute? You're
Wait a
on
minute.
mute. There you
Yeah,
go.
everything's good. Everything is good so far. Just doing what I do. Continuing to serve the people information, knowledge, inspiration, motivation through education.
Amazing. I just said that we are talking about public policy and why it's necessary. Like, why is it necessary to be able to write this legislation and these laws and to impact public policy? I don't think that people even realize that as regular citizens that you can.
Um, no, actually, it's going to take um, the masses of the people to, build a united front and, um, and demand without asking, without begging, without pleading for breaking our oppression, our over sentencing, our wrongfully convicted, our political prisoners who've been languishing in cells and dungeons and undergoing abuse and mistreatment and lack of medical care. This has to be a national united front. 5, 10, 100 people will never get it done. It's been tried over so many decades to no avail because we have those who look like us that prevent us from liberating us. So we, um, people like yourself and others who are in the trenches and are well versed and extremely entrenched and educated into public policy, law, judicial law, and things of that nature. It takes people like yourself, but it takes the thousands and thousands of the masses of people. The support itself is sufficient enough if we have the masses of the people, and we have various spokespersons and people who can speak that judicial lingo in those particular circles that will demand that our all of our demands be adhered to under an executive order, so to speak, demanding certain people to be released, demanding certain people to
Yes.
have mandatory immediate parole hearings and change the conditions and
Yep. Medical.
that exist in those prisons because they are horrific. They are very, very horrific, unimaginable. So, it takes people like yourself. That's not my that's not my expertise, but I'm on training wheels, so to speak, in terms of learning certain policies and things like that. Now I know a little bit about case law based on my personal experience in those in the system for so many years. So but to be able to go on a national front and be able to, like yourself, go head up with these people, and be well educated and well versed and serious and bring pride to the forefront. that that's it's extremely imperative that those like yourself and others continue to fight, even though it appears at times to be like a worthless cause, like nothing is moving forward, you know. But as long as you stay on the journey, something will be accomplished.
Preach, Shaka, preach. So, when you were talking, so there's a few things. The first time that I wrote or participated in any kind of public policy legislation was over a decade ago with Senator Donzella James. She was writing some mental health legislation, and one of my friends was just like, she needs someone to talk about health and wellness with her. And I just went in and shared my story. And when she was drafting it, I was like, well, that's not what we need. This is what we need. So I did it as an advocate. And I'm not sure how all the way stabilized on my meds I was at the time, but I was stable enough to say, this is what we need. And this isn't, and we don't need this part of the legislation. So sometimes it's like calling down to the Capitol, calling down to your elected officials, finding out who writes what kind of legislation and asking for a sit down so that you can just share part of your story with them so that usually because I'm not an elected official, I ran for city council, but I did not get elected. And I consulted with the Taylor English law firm who wrote the voter suppression laws here too. And I was bringing in Black activists to sit down to talk about, and people who've been incarcerated to talk about how that law and that legislation impacts us who have been incarcerated and what it looks like around voter suppression, voter participation, depending on who's talking about it. Um, and then you can sit on different volunteer with different organizations. I'm a member of Rotary Club. They have something coming up about human trafficking. I'm a member of WILF, Women's International League of Peace and Freedom. After 2 years, it's $35 a year membership. We launched the Black Liberation Caucus inside of there to hold them to account. An organization that's been around since 1915. It's been predominantly white. And we're like, we want you to be accountable for not having people of color. After 2 years, I can run for a national committee seat. I've been there for about a year and a half. And then if I'm elected, I get to be accountable to the United Nations on conversations such as reparations, mass incarceration, political prisoners. So, and it's $35 a year, which is a whole lot cheaper than what it cost me to run for city council to talk about potholes and noise ordinances, right?
Exactly.
So it's
Yes.
we just have to start looking, like find our tribe, look for those organizations that call to us. At one point, I sat with Teresa Elamine Ansar, Southern Anti-Racism Network, as a co-chair. So it's like look to the organizations that call to you and see what they're doing out in the community. Like Rotary Club, they pretty much, and that's a little more than $35 a year, but they pretty much eradicated um, sickle cell. No, they want to work on sickle cell now, as far as raising the funds to eradicate sickle cell. But there were, different ailments where just through raising funds, fundraisers, and being a member, they were able to volunteer and show up and donate and everything else for those funds to go towards that cause.
Exactly. Exactly. And when we talk in terms of reparations, people just think it's just some check.
Yeah.
But reparations, the monetary part is the last part.
Mm-hmm.
Reparations is the repairing of the damage that has been caused, through post-traumatic slavery disorder, the way we have been trained and conditioned to hate ourselves and our reflections. So, and then the land has to be redistributed and a redistribution, of stocks, bonds,
Mm-hmm.
property, land, um, education. Our people need to be re-educated. Because just giving out a check All it would do, it would just be the biggest stimulus check in history, and we will spend that money, because they'll have a reparations Lexus, they'll have a reparations Louis Vuitton suit, reparation Gucci purses,
It's a
reparations
big.
concerts. Yeah,
Yep.
reparations concerts. They'll sell, the white elitists will sell red, black, and green shoes, t-shirts, hats, trucks, all the toys that we have
Yep.
been hypnotized by. They would do it and they would get the money back and we would still be at block one. So, you know,
I remember.
part of
I remember
the
during
part of
COVID.
the rep go ahead.
I was gonna say I remember during COVID, one of my friends who's in the financial industry, he's a black guy. He was talking about how while all of us black people were out stocking up on toilet, his elitist white friends are like they were out stocking up on toilet paper stock.
Because and then they end up selling us the toilet paper
Correct.
out of their homes, becoming millionaires.
Correct. While we stock up on the toilet paper.
Exactly. And then they'll come up with FEMA camps. They'll say that, like they're doing now with this new monkeypox,
Oh yeah.
which, is the new, it's nothing but the AIDS
Mm.
virus warmed over again. And it's specifically, DC has the highest per capita rate of monkeypox because they have a high male gay rate. And I don't call it monkeypox. I call it punkypox because um, they also have a new virus as well for infants called the Paricho virus that affects infants. And see, this is a result of since the Roe versus Wade, what they're doing is, first of all, infecting all of those men that are gay, wiping them out. And since the Roe versus Wade, they decided to put a virus out to kill those infants and create an entire new wave of different people, an entire wave of different species under supreme rule, meaning no critical race theory. They will not have any knowledge of their own illustrious history, and they will go along and be a part of assimilation. This is what they've been doing. I did it on the video this evening. I talked about Dr. Fauci, how he's been around for decades and decades and decades and decades, creating viruses. Which dates back to the 1918 so-called Spanish flu, which Dr. Thomas Tuttle, who was the Anthony Fauci of that day. And this is who he patterns himself after. This is what he said out of his own mouth. And so, and now you have these inmates that are being inoculated and vaccinated for, 2 and 3 packs of ramen noodles. So this is how serious this situation is, especially within these prisons and DC jail being, probably the most horrific jail in terms of prison conditions and inhumane conditions that one could possibly endure after the Proud Boys were released. Because see, when all those that stormed the Capitol, when they went over to DC jail shipped all black inmates that had felonies, whether they were pre-trial or whatever. They shipped them to Lewisburg Penitentiary, and they took half of the jail and set it up where they had the Proud Boys had the best hospitality and the best conditions in the jail. Now that they have been released, they have once again started serving the maggot oatmeal and the plumbing is bad. There's no air conditioning in DC jail.
Wow.
You got 80 people on the average on one unit and one fan. And everybody thinks that fan is supposed to blow their way. So this creates havoc. We've
Yeah.
had uh, 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 about 20 deaths over there this year,
In
stabbings.
2022, in the last 7 months.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
COVID. I talked to a brother on a three-way yesterday, Monday. I talked to him Monday on the three-way, and he's the liaison between the inmates and the administration. And what they do is they'll send the mayor, they'll send all these so-called politicians into the jail and do a photo op with the honor tier, the most cleanest part of the jail, put fresh, brand new jumpsuits on the inmates for particular inmates that are hand-picked, and they do these photo ops to make it appear like it's not as bad as what people are talking about. So they
Wow.
have, you have people that have COVID blending in the regular population with the other inmates. So the COVID is running rampant in there, which was brought in there along with the drugs and alcohol and the tobacco by correctional officers. Because there's no way a person that has been tested goes into a unit and the only people that come from the outside are correctional officers and staff, and then half of the unit ends up with COVID.
Right.
And when yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you were talking about the conditions outside of the ailments and things like that, before you discussed the cages, like the solitary confinement and what that looks like. Do you mind sharing it, or is it
Well,
too dramatic?
yeah, not over DC jail, but the prisons, Maryland, and other states where they have these cages. They're dog cages, and you come out every other day for an hour, and you just walk around this cage. This is a concrete cage, and they're cages like a kennel, looks like an animal shelter. And then you have, somebody may be beefing with somebody in between you, so they're throwing human feces, at each other and piss. So that lands into your little cage, and so you have to deal with that for an hour. Some don't come out of solitary for 4 and 5 months, some a year or two before they're actually able to get air. And it's horrific. It is beyond comprehension in terms of how these prisons are ran, how they're conducted. Brothers are shot in the face with rubber bullets. Um, you know, um, they have a maximum security prisons where they bring the shower to the cell door, latch it to the cell door, and once they open the cell door, you go into the shower for 5 minutes, and they move it down to the next shower, move it down to the next shower. There are fire hydrants on each unit where they hook these hoses up where they can have, all of this stale water that's coming from local rivers and dirty lakes and stuff that are not properly filtered. The water is extremely hard where it literally cracks the skin, and so this is why brothers and sisters become, their complexions changes when they're incarcerated because, melanated people don't get a chance to, their skin doesn't get a chance to breathe. So, the longer that they in, I've seen some brothers almost look like albinos that they've been locked down so long without having any type of recreation or anything like that. So this is why it's so important, and this is why they hide. The media hides this. But at some point, I truly believe that there's going to be mass insurrections all across the country in these prisons.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know,
I mean, because it can't keep on. Like down here in Atlanta, we had at Ware State, they reported, I don't know if you saw it because it went viral. A guy had died. He overdosed on fentanyl and he was over. I put it on my Facebook page. It was like a week ago, and he was literally hunched over um the rail for 3 hours, and there were no guards or anything. I've been on the phone calls with one of my friends, and her daughter is incarcerated, and they had a whole gang fight, like knives, everything, and there weren't any POs, and the area was like 90 women with no not POs, correction officers, no COs. So there was no one on the floor to break up anything, and her face got cut, and they've been serving them food that had, like, the prison that she's at is not even supposed to be open. On the record it says it's closed. So what are they doing with those women in this prison? That's, you know, they're they have chemicals in their food where it's causing cancer and things like that, and the prison's supposed to be closed.
Mm.
So, it's like no justice, no peace. That's all I can say. Like, people are sitting here in prison on petty charges, or they're innocent, or even the ones who are guilty. Like, if it were animals, everybody would be out protesting and demonstrating. Animals shouldn't be treated that way. But because they're brown and black people, or lower socioeconomic class of white people or Asian people, they deserve to be treated how? That's not cool.
Oh, it's the same way in DC when their bodies every night, 10, 15 bodies, people have died of starvation. People in the wintertime have been frozen stiff. They never mention that. But if a white couple's dog is missing, their little poodle, they will put their picture up, the poodle's picture up, how much they weigh, and they'll have the owners in tears, and they'll have these reward signs up. But they're always safe, and they take pleasure into announcing and covering the carnage and the blood that is spilled in the community, black community. And so it's scripted. They will pretend like they're doing something, but really they're counting on the body count. So more police, they'll say more police. That means more pigs get overtime. They get to send their children to college. The morticians are killing, making a killing. Having I've seen families scrape and scuffle just to get the down payment money to put away a loved one. They don't even do payment plans no more. They have a waiting list. If someone passes away tonight, they might not have a viewing to mid-August. You know,
Wow.
and then the churches have a waiting list. Then you have to pay thousands of dollars to be eulogized. So everybody profits off of this.
Except the families.
Yeah. And the families, this is why a lot of them turn to drugs, alcohol as coping mechanisms, pills, prescription medication, thoughts of suicide, self blame, and all of this madness goes unaddressed,
Yeah.
and there's no mystery. Your son's murdered, your daughter's murdered, suck it up. If you're lucky, they'll take some a poster paper from Walmart and yell "No justice, no peace." I'm about sick of hearing that slogan. I really am. And until things have to take a more drastic measure, a more drastic measure until and we have to be heard, and there has to be and I'm talking about the masses of people have to come out of their houses and be ready to make a sacrifice for the future generations.
Yes. Yes.
For
For
the future generations.
the warfare.
Asian people, when they work, they look out for the next 5 generations. Our people, we look out for, my babies and my hope I have some grandkids, and
Yep.
that's it. Give them some life insurance policy. Somebody could cash in off of them, which black families the real nigger comes out of black people when somebody
Use
passes.
the word. Oh, you didn't say hard R.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it comes out. Everybody argues over who gets what, and scuffle and fight and won't speak to each other based on somebody you probably wasn't even communicating with that has passed away. Now all of a sudden, and I see these funerals, people hooping and hollering. You're not crying because the people gone. That's guilt because you didn't spend time with them and
Amen.
do what you're supposed to do. So um, it's more deeper than we could uh imagine. Imagine. So what you and others are doing is extremely commendable. It's extremely commendable.
Well, what you're doing is extremely commendable because right now you are dropping some knowledge to the people. You empowering people. You empowering me. I look a little sleepy. I wasn't feeling too good today, so I haven't really been. I got something to eat, but I haven't really been out and about. So thank you
Mhm.
because I appreciate you. I appreciate the knowledge that you bring. Um, I don't think that people really get what incarceration looks like. They're like, if you can't do the crime, you shouldn't. If you can't do the time, you shouldn't have done the crime. But half of these crimes and the time aren't even justifiable. Like people are sitting incarcerated doing life without parole for armed robbery with no weapon and an alibi. People are sitting there on murder charges. Someone called me today about this girl who murdered her pimp, who actually had killed somebody, tried to kill her, shot at her, beat her, prostituted her, and she killed him. And she's sitting in prison facing, I mean, she's looking at life.
Not
Remember?
because she killed him. It's not even because she killed him. See, sentencing is based on points. People think it's just convictions and prior arrests. No, they go by whether you're employed, your assets, your education, bank account. What's
It's
your
cheaper
worth
to
out here?
incarcerate you than to leave you outside of
Family
the
support.
streets.
Yeah, family support, community support, money in the bank, assets. Are you employed? Employment history. Then they go with your previous criminal history because then they weigh it all out and say, well, he's worth more
On the
working for
outside than
IKEA in the USP than he is out here because it appears he's valueless out here based on this history, this credit check, this credit score is 500 or 400. He dropped out in the 10th grade. He's only had two jobs in his life, and he have no longevity, a lack of vocational skills, no social skills,
Yep.
and so you go to prison. You go in. It's not about no, if I got a paid lawyer, because public defenders defend the public. They don't defend the defendant.
Right.
It's just
Wow.
how it goes. Just
I
how it goes.
I agree. Or they get you, or you come home from prison and they ask you when you first come home while you're doing probation if you ready to be an informant. And if you are not, then you end up being someone like a Jarvis Lights where you're murdered in the streets by police. You
Or if
know.
you are an informant, when they finish with you, they'll get rid of you because
Yeah.
they don't want you to flip on them. Just like drug people that are considered shot callers in terms of the drug subculture in the black communities. They are given the drugs by task force, councilmen, and politicians. They
Mm-hmm.
have to pay, and in order, they give their runners breaks and stuff. Everybody has seen certain drug dealers that go untouched for years, and
Yep.
then they end up dead, and they blame it on rival gang. But really, when they're finished with them, or they give any inclination that they're going to start ratting and telling on the police, it's the end of them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And they also say that you no longer, by you not participating and by you not being willing to be a snitch, for better choice of words, then you're an accomplice.
Because
Or
an
you're
informant is the least respected among law enforcement.
not. Hmm.
They have more respect for those who ask for a lawyer once they are captured. I don't call it custody. I call it being captured.
Yeah,
You know,
because
and
definitely
so yeah,
is
it's
definitely
captured.
being
Then,
captured.
then yeah, you
Yanked,
go in, you get dehumanized.
being yanked and pulled. If they give you food, if they give you a phone call, if they Mirandize you.
Well, most of these places now, when you're getting interrogated, if you're not working with them, you get nothing. You get
Yep.
nothing. And they'll let you sit in a cage and turn the air all the way up in the wintertime while you're in that
Oh
cell
my gosh, I've been
for
there.
hours and hours.
Where you watch the little glass get all foggy and you can write your name in the cold because it's so
Yeah.
cold in there, and they take your blankets and they might leave you with a sheet, might,
See, they
but
do that before you go to jail. Like when you're waiting for transport and a
uh-huh.
bond has been set, they'll let you sit back there and freeze half to death. So you'll be begging and hoping and praying that transport will come sooner so you can thaw out.
Oh,
This
you
is
talking about when you're
all
in the cell,
mental.
when you're being transported. I've been there too, where they have you handcuffed in the middle of the winter in just those short sleeve shirts, and you just sitting in an ice cold cell while they have on those coats with the fur and everything else. Yep,
And they got in DC, they got these
gloves.
vans that they have these like harnesses hooked to the walls of the van, and so they will, make all these turns on purposes to sling people
Hmm.
around in the vans, and they will laugh while they play music, and
Hmm.
it is deplorable. I mean, I'm
They do
talking
it here
about
too, and that's not prison. We aren't even talking about prison. We're talking about jail.
right,
So just
but county
imagine
jails
it's
are
in
worse
prison.
than some prisons. County jails are worse than some prisons. You look at Milwaukee, when sheriff that what's his name Clark, that coon was
Can't
when
say
he
that
was
word on
sheriff. Huh?
here. Can't say that
Oh,
word either.
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, when he was the
Sheriff.
sheriff in Milwaukee, they had so many hangings and beatings in that county jail. Just as how he got to move up the ladder and became a sidekick to Trump. And,
Wow.
I mean, you can ask anybody in Milwaukee; they have had hangings, beatings, lynchings, starvation. People have been starved out. People have had seizures and medical attention. People have been ignored. People have been stepped over that are having convulsions and seizures. In the women's prison, they impregnate the females and then they'll blame it on transgender men that they're putting into the women's prisons now.
Yep. Definitely.
So,
And half the time, when I was at jail, I was asking the questions, although I was there under duress off my mental health medication. I was like, "Are you a transgender?" And the guy would be like, "Chantaye, shut up. You know I'm not a transgender." I'm like, "I don't know. You got these long dreadlocks. You a male in this all female facility. What you doing here?" He's like, "I ain't no transgender." Or asking the men, like there was a guy who was in regular clothes sitting in a cell with a bag full of cash. I'm like, or the time that they transported me on the bus with males. Like they would transport me with males on the bus to an all female facility. I'm like, we aren't even going to the same place. Why are they on the bus with me? Chantaye, just shut up. Just shut up. Hell, like I need to understand. Then I get on my
girl,
bull, scare them
you
away.
lucky to survive that because in DC, they don't even let you eat. When you raise hell, you end up missing. They call it hiding you, where they'll
Mhm.
put you in solitary for about 6 months.
Yeah, I
You
was in
know,
solitary. Well, I was in a cell by myself the whole time. I wasn't in quote unquote solitary confinement, but I was in a jail cell by myself the entire time that I was incarcerated. I didn't have anyone in there with me. And sometimes,
Solitary is much
but
different. You have to be there a minimum of 30 days. You get evaluated every 30 days. They come by and do
they don't
a
come in.
half-ass physical.
No, they didn't give
Yeah,
us physicals. They didn't bring medicine. You just sit in a cell. There's nothing to read. You can't watch the TV. They will not. They'll turn off your toilet. They'll turn off the water, and they may bring you food, but you're in a regular cell.
yeah. But solitary is much different with no lights. There are no lights, period. It's
Wow.
just completely dark. So you have to actually look on the floor and you gauge time from the light of the floor, you know, and, and watching the rats, run all around your cell all night, squeaking, making noises. It's just a lot of hooping and hollering. People, brothers are actually going insane. You can hear them screaming these eerie screams, of desperation for help.
Yeah, I believe it.
I could write a book on my personal experience. Period. My 13 years. Period. You
Wow.
know, of the neglect and abuse. Like I said, I've had, these correctional officers, these white Aryans. I was
Mm.
fighting them, and ended up with broken leg, and
Whoa, what do you mean broken legs? Both of your legs were broken?
well, my one leg was broken all the way up to my hip, and then the other leg, the bone was sticking out of my shin, and my ankle, my foot was turned backwards on the other foot, and
Dang.
so um, all I remember, and then they were still choking me. White, racist, spiderweb tattoo, hillbilly Aryans, and I can give you a list of those in D.C. They have the phalanx in D.C. These are right wing elitist racist organizations here. Scott Townsend Publishers. This is in Washington D.C. downtown. What they do, they are in charge of the distribution of white supremacist newspapers and information to all the white supremacist groups.
Hmm.
The Be Active Front, that's in Maryland. The Blood and Honor America Division, that's in D.C. And they're very, very heavy in D.C. You'll see them. They look like regular people jogging up and down the street, walking their dogs and stuff, but they're actually surveilling the community and taking mental and written notes on how, in case of an insurrection or in case they invade the black community, how they would target and destroy and kill brothers and sisters. And
Wow.
then you got the Maryland state skinheads, and that's who we went against. And so I ended up being on solitary confinement with casts on my legs for 5 months on the top bunk. You know, um, And so, eating rice that had been pissed in that they said it was butter,
Hmm.
a whole lot of horrific stuff. I don't even, I'm not even going to discuss, you know, when I'm on airways where it's censored, you know,
Yeah.
this is why I do live videos so I can really get gut level, and give people the gory details of what it is. And see, our youth don't know this because of what uh, the television shows, Power, and all these prison shows, how they glorify it.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like that, and
It,
they're paid to do this. They're paid to do this.
yeah.
And so, I mean, it's so many layers to this, but we have so many people that look like you and I who are largely responsible for keeping our people at a subordinate level, upholding the 13th Amendment to keep our brothers and sisters, behind enemy lines, and all of the people that benefit from uh um the music industry, uh the people that are in the prison that work for some of the companies that they make furniture and clothes for: J.C. Penney, Walmart, Sara Lee, Motorola, Microsoft, Boeing, Johnson and Johnson, Revlon, Starbucks, Macy's,
Victoria.
IBM, Victoria's Secret,
Yeah.
Chevron, Target, Unicorn. That's just like
Aramark.
a salt grain. Now, these are all the divisions. These are all the divisions that even the cereal. I worked for Frank Perdue. I worked on the chicken plant, breaking chickens' necks. I had holes in my arms from chicken being pecked by chickens. There are rats everywhere. The conditions are horrible. They make you take those dead chickens, they clean them, cut them, and sell them. Tyson's provide KFC with chickens. That's why it's so much gristle in KFC's chicken. A lot of that is waste. A lot of that is fecal matter, and then rat fecal matter. Then I worked for Ross and Perina making dog food. Out of horse meat, old tuna fish, rotten food, and things of that nature. So um, it's far more intense than you can imagine. And this is why I say when people are released, mental health counseling, those things are important because it's just like you've been in a war. You have
Yeah.
to be debriefed from that particular mindset in that particular environment. So, um, once again, like I said, I commend those who, take the time and commit their lives because, most of us have to, sacrifice being in the social world and doing so many of the things that we like to do, but it's hard to do when you got people that's laying on the sidewalk that's hungry, and people that don't have shoes, no clothes, people that are killing themselves, killing one another, babies that are being violated, and abused, and you know, these people are adopting our babies and they're taking them and doing what they want. Like what's the I think it was Madonna or somebody who
Charlize
um
Theron, who made the
yeah, yeah,
child
yeah,
trafficking.
yeah. And see, that's not you know, those babies probably been attending these private industry parties as children, and they've been tossed around, and they feel indebted to those for providing them with such an
Bless
immaculate
her.
environment. You
Yeah.
know, you can get whatever you want, but I need you to go upstairs and, you ate and Mr. Kozlowski is up there. He's 65 years old, 300 pounds. He's in there naked, and take care of him and look out for him. And they're trained to do this. And we're not saying nothing about it. Nothing. Nothing.
Except for a
Because,
couple of Facebook posts.
yeah, that's why I cut no card. I give nobody no passes. I don't care who you are. You get no passes because our babies are being militarized, sexualized, and and they're being inoculated, and they're being in DC. You can't even go into school to talk to your child. That's
You can't
against
do
the
it here
law.
either. They're trying to say because of COVID. I
No,
can't afford any of my kids' schools.
okay. If that's because of COVID, then why you can go on Walmart?
Right.
You can go on Target, you can go on Starbucks, you can go on any of these other stores and the casinos. You can go to any basketball games, football games, soccer games. But when it comes to going in that public food system, you can't get in there because of some
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah. Got it. So, Shaka, do you want to continue on another 10 minutes or you want to wrap up?
Oh, we can wrap up because I'm like you. I'm hungry and tired. I've been working all day as well.
You see
You
my
know.
eyes, they're all bloodshot. We were just talking about weaves and wigs, and look at me. I'm getting my that's what had you think of Madonna and Charlize Theron. No, I'm playing. I'm playing.
I know. I
Trying to
know.
make you laugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
So
sharing about
yeah.
that solitary confinement piece. Because it takes something to share it and to keep sharing it. That's how you feel the trauma.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started sharing, and I didn't experience the cage light experience, but when I first started sharing about it on Zooms, my eyes would move. I feel uneasy. I'd get a lump in my throat. My anxiety would have me rocking. My anxiety would still have me rocking. Um, but for you to be there for 13 years and all the horrific things that you had to experience, and you're being so bold and vulnerable and willing to share it, I really appreciate that. And thank you for taking on your own healing of those
Yes.
conditions.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So we'll continue next week. You know, we'll have some help. You know, hopefully we'll have a couple of guests or something like that. So it's
Yeah,
just
I
the
was
beginning.
like, I was talking to someone that was supposed to be a guest this morning at like 6 a.m. I was like, listen, I just went to bed at 2. It's 6. I'm going back to sleep. And that was how I
Right,
spent
right.
the day. Zoom calls and sleep. Zoom calls and sleep.
We'll
Fiddling
have
around with my
somebody.
hair.
Don't worry.
Trying to put some hair on so I can get on a Zoom call and go back to sleep. It was real
That's
out
work.
here today, General Shaka.
Yeah.
Thanks for being my guest. Thanks for not
No
my guest,
problem.
for co-hosting.
Same here. Same here. Anytime.
And y'all, we got some surprises. Pretty soon we're gonna be on the Roku network. So keep watching it. We're gonna be on Roku in August. And with that,
like that.